Pete Dog. Pete Dog. Woo, 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 woo.
We're back in it. We are back in it.
Woo, 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 woo. What's crazy is earlier today, right? I was reading the comments. I had did a dope conversation with Bond First. Bond First is like so there's a lot of YouTube channels that are dedicated solely to Tupac and things of Tupac's legacy, which is amazing. You know, I grew up in there where Tupac was like the underdog. And so that, you know, to have people dedicate complete channels and media to his very existence of 24, 25 years is amazing. Um, I did a conversation with a, a platform called Bond First, and John and Reggie White. They both Reggie White was running Death Row for a while, and John worked at Death Row for a while.
Gotcha.
So they're super knowledgeable on the music business. Super
We talked to
knowledgeable
Reggie
on
before, right?
things. Yeah, we talked to Reggie. Yeah,
Yeah.
Gangster Chronicles.
Yeah.
So we've all things knowledgeable when it comes to Death Row, and they were the first platform once I dropped. This is the third anniversary. You know, July 17th is the third anniversary of Tupac Must Die, of me releasing it. And we did a conversation. We were talking about different things. And to watch people in the comments, you know, like antagonize or attempt to antagonize me is like almost like the greatest thing I ever saw, because you got to think, right before I dropped Tupac Must Die, like the title itself was really inspired by Romeo Must Die. I think it's obvious, right? I don't know. I don't think it was that obvious, but I thought it was obvious.
I thought it was. Well, I mean,
it makes sense
my
to me,
mind,
right? So, the idea behind the story. So this is what's crazy, right? So hold it. First off, no ceilings. GL, my man Peter Boss and the Spiz not going to work, right? So click on, right? So 2012, I leave Cash Money Records. 2011, I leave Cash Money Records. I'm in the studio with DJ Head. I'm working on what is White Lightning 2 at the time, right? And I'm recording all these songs. And everybody or anybody who knows me knows that Scarface is like my favorite rapper. You know what I mean? Like he like I have the utmost respect for Scarface, probably more than any other MC that ever breathed. Just as a artist, like a vocally performing artist, not necessarily the same cultural phenomenon that I celebrate about Snoop, you know, which is why I say he's the greatest hip hop artist ever. Not the business acumen of a whole, which is why he's the most successful rapper ever. Or the creative brilliance of Kanye West, you know, all my top 5 guys, or the imagination and the lushness of that is Rick Ross. Scarface rapping, right, is literally, I said it's like if God of the Old Testament was an MC, that's how he would sound and rap about the same stuff Scarface rapped about.
Yeah.
Right. So I was super inspired by Scarface making music at that time in 2011. And DJ Head comes into the studio, right? Now, DJ Head's been DJing about 4 years, but he picked it up lightning fast. You know what I mean? He knew exactly what to do with it. It's almost unbelievable how fast he became a great DJ. And I'm recording in the booth, and he comes to the door of the booth. He like, man, why is all your fucking songs slow? And I'm like, what you mean music is slow? I'm like, nigga, music is just music. He like, nah, man, it's BPMs, beats per minute. And I'm like, the fuck you talking about? I'm like, man, beat it. You know, get the fuck out of here. So he goes in the engineer room with Tommy. And I come out, I'm listening to the song. I'm like, yeah, this song hard. Cruising. You ain't fuck with this? He like, man, it's just so slow. And I'm like, man, blah, blah, blah. So I walked out of that control room, right? Studio Signal Hill, and I walked into the other control room. And I came back, and Head was in the booth recording in the same cadence to the same beat. All my fucking songs slow. Like just being an asshole. right? So I'm like, what the fuck? So like, man, what are you talking about? Music is slow, cuz how could he like it's rhythm, BPM. He said, like, hit your chest. No, he told me tap the table. And I was tapping into the beat. He was playing my song. He like, see, this your song. And he said, this is a Scarface song. And he played, he said, it's the same tempo. He said, the difference is this is a Snoop song. And I'm tapping faster. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, there's a difference. Right? But
Yeah.
before that, music to me was just ballads and Luke. Ballad and Luke, and everything in the middle was the same thing because I
Yeah.
wasn't going to parties to dance. I mean, it ain't like these, G Funk was making music as fast as, Bell Biv DeVoe or New Jack Swing or something. It's not that speed. So that was like the first revelation I had, in the step of the education that is the record business. And from that point on, like I just kind of fell down this hole. Like he had pushed me down this hole. And I'm falling. I'm catching BPM. I'm starting to hear the samples. I'm hearing how, genres matter, you know what I mean? Where you at around the country. I noticed the West Coast really took the funk. I noticed the South took the blues. I noticed the Midwest took the R&B. And I noticed the East Coast took the jazz. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm falling. So now I'm learning records. I pick it up. I got a decent understanding. And then you keep falling because now you're starting to understand what's hip hop. You're like, oh, okay, it's way more than just, it ain't really the music. You know what I mean? It's the way people from urban street culture, it's culture. You know what I mean? How they was freaking the music. And culturally, it depends on where you at, determines how they freaking the music. But it's all rooted in urban street culture, densely populated, crime ridden neighborhoods. So I was like, oh, okay. So now I'm getting a vibe for that. And then I started understanding marketing, right? What marketing was. Branding, right, is like understanding your business. Marketing is understanding your customers.
Mm.
And when they line up, right, you have an amazing business, right? So I was like, damn. So it became 8 years of this shit. I tried to put out music and I couldn't because my mind was just, I'm falling down the hole. I could never grab nothing to stop me from falling. And it was just crazy. And right around 2018, towards the end, I noticed, I was like, holy shit, this is way deeper than I thought. So I didn't got all this information. So now as I started understanding the business that Glasses Malone Records needed to be, it became apparent, right? Understanding the brand, right? How do people see the brand that is Glasses? Where am I really an expert at? What urban street culture am I a professor in? Like, what could I teach 99% of the population? What information do I have that they don't have? I'm a Crip. And I'm a Crip in a way, right, to where I've always been sober. I've always asked questions. I fought and shot and everything you could do. Went to jail the whole nine, sold drugs, everything. But I was always awoke. I was never even under the influence of weed. I never smoked weed in my life. I never drank alcohol in my life. So I was always conscious as things were going on. So my take on gang banging, right, is really unique because it's from very much the experience, but with a level of rationale. So I realized people saw my brand, right? They look at Glasses, they're like, oh, he's a Crip. So that is something they are willing to accept from me, right? When it comes to my excellence as a professor in gangbanging, right? Um, Moving forward, like my customer is people that are fans of gangster rap.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, so what's gangster, right? And I'm like, okay, this is crime, right? Okay, hip hop is when, and the greatest hip hop is when you unearth culture, like culture that hasn't been obviously presented. So, the first time you heard Snoop and them, and you seen the video and you seen Lowriders in the music video, right? That was them unearthing the culture, the style of the West Coast, right? You see them wearing Dickies and Pendletons and Chucks and blue laces and hats and the 501 denim jackets. You seen the fashion, another aspect of culture, right? So they've been unearthing culture, in gangster rap for 30 years at this point. So I'm like, damn, man. So I started looking up the word culture, right? And I'm like, okay, these are different aspects. And one aspect stuck out to me, which was morality. I mean, I don't think people really understand morally what's acceptable in our line of lifestyle. And something in me decided it was two things I had to do, right? If I wanted people to care about the culture, I had to put, I had to make somebody a part of it that they had vested interest in the mainstream world.
Yeah.
So it was two ideas I had. One was the start of the riots, right? And Reginald Denny, right? How the A Trays kicked off what we call the Los Angeles riots in '92.
When that video comes out, do I still get to play Reginald Denny?
You have to,
Yes.
right? So, and then it was that or Tupac Shakur, right? Who, when I was growing up, was culturally ours. He belonged to urban America. He belonged to, like, my mom bought me a CD. Like, he's perfect. Like, he has the right attitude. You know what I'm saying? So, um, he was culturally ours initially, but as he passed away and reached his heights as a musician and as an entertainer, and then he passed away so tragically, it sent him into a trajectory, right? That was Jesus like, right? It was like Jesus, where he became a figure you could pray to and, in theory, unite people. And then so they created, just like Christianity, they created a whole religion around Tupac that, with all due respect, altered some of the facts. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? For the justification of bringing humanity together. Like Constantine, when he orchestrated what would be called Christianity, it was the goal to bring Rome together. So they allowed things that didn't have to necessarily be true, as they made it the truth, because this was the smartest way to unify people, stop these fights. And that's what I think the legacy of Tupac does. You know what I mean? They have, it's a religion, and you have preachers, right? You have Bond First, you have Art of Dialogue, right? Who are really some intelligent brothers and different people who run around preaching the gospel of Tupac Shakur. And it don't matter if it's not real or if it's false or none of that. It's like, long as it brings people together in the name of Tupac. Like, I realized there was it was a movie called it was a superhero, like a knockoff X-Men, The Watchmen. It's not a knockoff X-Men, forgive me. The Watchmen, right? And it was the same moral storyline of Jesus or, Pac, where people they created a lie, right? They made Russia look like they were about to attack America, right? To bring, or no, excuse me, I take that back. Alien superhero was attacking Earth to stop the war between America and Russia. You know what I mean? They made this figure, this alien figure from another planet, seem like he was attacking the Earth, so all of the countries could come together, and stop warring. And even though it was based off the premise of a lie, it didn't matter. It didn't fucking matter. Feel me? It didn't matter. And that's what happens with the legacy of Tupac Shakur at this point. They're creating a religion around it, you know what I mean, to unite people. So it's okay. You know what I mean? It's okay. And long story short, so when I decided to make the song, I realized I needed to take a mainstream event that had somebody in it that the mainstream people care about, and then somebody from the urban streets that I'm from or the lifestyle that they may have misunderstood.
You kind of, in a way, just declared yourself Homer to Tupac's Odysseus with like the
Sure.
Iliad and the Odyssey.
Sure. And my goal was never to you can't discredit Tupac Shakur. That's just stupid. Like, let's start. Tupac Shakur is one of the most amazing and greatest comeback stories in the history of human beings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Period. It's like, I don't think Rudy's comeback story is as great as Tupac's comeback story. Like, Tupac's comeback story is one of the greatest comeback stories in the history of mankind. Feel me? Like, is that great? But I realized that the story was to be told about the urban street experience. And I knew how to tell it in a much more detailed and deeper way that was thought out and how it goes because I'm experienced at it and I've studied it enough to understand it outside of my own understanding. So all of these things went into the thought that was Tupac Must Die to do it.
Mm.
And to watch people in the comments reduce it down to clout chasing, like, oh, he just said Tupac's name. It's like you're discrediting real like thought. Like this took me years to come up with this idea. Like these are not simple ideas. You know what I mean? Like if you listen to the depth of the song, you will hear, with gangbanging, you'll hear a lot of the issues in it. You know what I mean? A lot of the
Yeah.
malfunctionings of it. The overvalue of pride is in that song. If word get back to the city, everybody gonna try me. That's how you
That's
really
kind of the
feel.
whole thing of the song. Like, when I first saw the project, I was like, oh, that's, kind of taking the most high profile gang related murder of all time and using that as an illustration to kind of define what happens and why things happen in real time in that world for other people who don't get it, you know? Like that's how it came off to me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So,
It was just like the greatest illustration example ever for that, that area.
yeah, yeah, and I put a lot into the song. The title itself was like probably the easiest thing because I was just watching John Tucker Must Die. I was like, oh, must die, John Tucker must die. Sure, Tupac must die. It's the name of a film. I didn't even think of it like
John
people would
Tucker.
say like must die like I think they get the feel I'm talking about his legacy or something weird. Sometimes people aren't that bright. You know what I'm saying? They are entirely too intellectually lazy to even care to process an idea. They have too many things going. They're too busy to think. Let's just be honest. Cause so long story short, we shoot the whole video first person. The whole video is shot first person. You got to experience what it's like to be with your homeboys. I turned you into a gangbanger, and I gave you the mind state. I gave you the things that I remember clearly about being a gang member. I gave you the arrogance. I gave you the pride, the ego. I gave you the concern. I gave you the pressure where
Yeah.
niggas is like, yeah, you gonna let this nigga get to. I gave you everything I ever got as a gang member in less than 5 minutes.
I got a question. The first person perspective of the video, and most of it is on foot. Is it a coincidence that like I don't know, like the beat or the bass line, it's kind of got this plotting kind of sound to it
Yeah,
that like matches up with a guy walking glunk 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 glunk. Like it kind of fits in with a person just walking around all the time.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
perfectly
It's a
synchronized.
very, it is a very plotty type of sound and very menacing and thought, but it's so much into that song and that record to watch people like, oh, he just said Tupac's name. It's like, and that shit's hilarious to me, but anytime I talk about it, people talk about it to this day, they remember it. You feel me? And what made me comfortable with, I knew what to expect, right?
Mm.
I definitely didn't think people was this lazy, intelligent. Like I thought by now people would start figuring it out, but they still got some more time, right? It's almost weird um because what I'm saying, I don't actually see how it's disrespect at all. That's what I've been trying to figure out. People are like, oh, it's a he dissed Tupac. Even when Dre was like, when Dr. Dre was arguing with me in the studio and I'm listening to him, I'm like, nigga, diss Tupac, nigga, why would I diss Tupac? He like, you got a song called Fuck Tupac. I'm like, no, I don't. What kind of dumbass shit is that? Like Tupac passed away and I'm a Tupac, I love Tupac's music. Why would I diss Tupac? He was like, well, that's what somebody told him. So that's how people are passing the message.
Mm.
Like, and I'm starting to realize it's actually not the content at all. It's how people are passing the message of the song. And
Yeah.
most likely it's coming from somebody who never watched the song or the visual, rather. They
Yeah.
never heard the song and they're just passing it. And I'm starting to realize, like, I'm counting the views on YouTube, it's at 3 million views. On Facebook, before my Facebook got stolen, it was at 5 million views. On Twitter, it's at 2 million views. Right. So you're talking about a total of, 10 million views. On Instagram, maybe another million views, whatever it is, it's way more people talking about it. So that means all of these people didn't see it, yet they have an opinion about it. And I started to think about where we at in today's time where people just read the headline and they think they know the story.
Yeah. And the same thing was true also about Tupac's shooting itself. Like, how many people around hip hop media had some sort of speculative, you know, conspiracy theory or whatever about what was behind it or how it happened, why all these different things for years, you know?
But what I realized, the brilliance in it all wouldn't be respected unless it was by like a colleague or like somebody critical. Like it
Mm.
wasn't meant to be a mass thing. And I realized that about NWA's Fuck the Police, or anytime you unearth a thought in culture, right? It is not for the mainstream to pick it up at that level. Now, you know, a song like I just released, right? Kanye should have never married that bitch. That's a little bit more mainstream, right? Because the concept is easier, right?
Mm.
You can't turn a hoe into a housewife. That's an easy, overstated concept in hip hop, at least culturally from us. Not from
Yeah.
everybody else. I think a lot of the other, the East, the East, the Midwest, and the South. I don't know if they quite agree because they culturally, the South, they'll marry strippers and all kind of crazy shit. The East same way, and the Midwest, I no, they're a lot like us. They not gonna save them. The East will
Yeah.
save them, the South will save them, but the Midwest and the West, like we just ain't gonna save them. So it's a little easier. And I also think the rhythm of the music, how fast it is as a record. So Tupac Must Die became this super duper anomaly and pariah. And it's funny because somebody was talking to me, they was like, man, I just knew people was gonna do other versions of that song. Like they would make another rapper. And I'm like, the problem is people think I just said a rapper, or certain fans would come to me, right? And Peter be like, oh man, when you gonna do Biggie Must Die? And I'm like, I don't know what happened to Biggie, nor what happened to Biggie is a street story.
Yeah.
That's not a street story, right? That like nobody in the streets know what happened to Biggie. Like that's how I knew it was like a real high dollar hit. You know what I mean? Some crazy shit. It wasn't like regular. With Tupac, when Pac got shot, we knew in real time to the T. Like we knew when they jumped on Cuz in the casino, all the way to when he caught up with him and found out he got shot before the news said it. Because street business travels in the streets. Biggie shit was never street business. Nobody had an idea what happened. It wasn't even like nothing. With Tupac, it was unanimous at the same time. We all got the same calls and was calling each other around. Like, man, them boys and them got that pot, you know what I'm saying, for jumping on him. And it was never like really no sad feeling. It was just that's how it go in the streets. It's normal.
Yeah.
But to have this work and people realize it and just they are so intellectually lazy or so consider themselves a fan. I'm telling you, it's no different than when I talk to like I don't like talking about religion, especially Christianity, right? Because I don't study Christianity the way other people do. I don't first off, I don't study it under somebody watching down on me like a preacher or somebody trying to tell me. And nor do I study the Bible is not the beginning. I mean, Christianity itself, it starts with multiple different things way before that, even before, the Council of Nicaea convened. You know what I'm saying? Before that, like the ideas were already there. You know what I'm saying? Even if it wasn't called Christianity. So that's how I feel. And you just like I watch it and I watch how many like I got a chance to talk to Dre about how many people hated them at the Fuck the Police. I was able to get some counsel from Ren. I was able to get counsel from the outside. And I realized when you make real gangster rap, Like people don't like it. They're outraged. When Snoop first came out, dog, I never forget it was a church group or a church collective. A bunch of churches bought like
Mm,
200-300 of his CDs and then put them out in the streets and had all these people out there rooting against it, right?
yeah.
And they were and they were like they rolled him over with like a steam press.
I
It
mean,
was on the news.
even even in Watts, 99% of people still call the police. Like if something happens to them, that's significant enough. Someone might be like, "Oh, they're not going to show up. I'm not going to call." But if it matters enough, 99% of people are still going to call the police. And those are the people that are going to make up most of the audience. I thought one of the interesting points you made kind of in passing a second ago was like if oh, you were saying like people get like fans who don't know the guy get more passionately like engaged like emotionally over the death of Tupac or celebrities in general, than like you would in a circumstance that makes sense over someone that you knew personally. Like if someone from, you know, your hood that you knew went and got involved and, did whatever to somebody else and they came back and got him. I mean, you're going to have to do what you're going to have to do, but you're not going to be irrationally like out of your mind over how it could possibly have taken place. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Um, you know what it is too, and I realized looking at it, I realized the difference between me and most people, and I have to stop calling myself that. Like, fan is short for fanatic.
Mm,
A fanatic is a person filled with excessive and single minded zeal, especially for any extreme purpose, whether it's religion or political cause. So, a person filled, so a Tupac fan or a Tupac fanatic or a Snoop Dogg fanatic or a Snoop Dogg fan is a person filled with excessive and single minded zeal for
yeah.
this artist.
Hmm.
I don't think I'm a fanatic of anyone.
No, I can't cross that bridge either. It's a state of delusion. I mean, it's artificially manufacturing a relationship with a person that you don't know and have never met that doesn't exist. It involves an emotional bond that's not real.
And it's people, man, who jump in my DMs once or twice a year and literally just will cuss me out. And I'll ask them when I got time and feel like being bothered. I'll be like, why are you
I
upset?
feel
You
like
made
being
that
bothered.
song.
How you just said.
What is wrong? He was like, well, you made that song dissing Tupac. Well, how did I diss him? Well, you just capitalizing off his death. I'm like, anybody that talks about Tupac today capitalizes off his death. If they're telling a
Yeah,
story that you feel favors him, it's capitalizing off his death. If you feel it's somebody who says something negative, if somebody puts out a verse, they're capitalizing off the fact he died.
yeah,
And you start making sense to people. And because they are so single-mindedly, excessively just enthusiastic about a person, they're single-minded. And the point about hip hop is it's all about that upside down perspective. So how if you're a fanatic of Tupac Shakur, right? There's no way possible you can understand this song. Like if somebody's a fanatic of the police department and police services, fuck the police could never make sense. It don't matter which point you point out. Like to me, Tupac
yeah,
Must Die was not like the goal was not to take an opposing side against Tupac Shakur. That's just silly. It's not about that. It's to inform you, right, on the morality of a specific urban street culture. This cripping. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Gang banging. Bloods do the same exact thing. Like, and we morally all agree that it's the right thing to do and we all respect it. So I'm shedding a light, in a place in hip hop that's never been shed before morally. But if somebody's a single minded if they're a single-minded and excessive, you know what I mean, silliness over a person or a cause, I'm more delusional to think they can understand it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it hit me like I am not a fanatic. I'm not a fan of any fucking bodies.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of anyone. I don't think I'm single-minded about or excessive about any person. The closest would be Scarface. And yes, Scarface can do wrong. What's weird to me is with Tupac Must Die, I don't think I pointed out anything wrong about him. I didn't say, oh, he did this wrong. I'm giving you a person's perspective of how they see it. And he didn't say he did nothing wrong. He like, oh, I'm going to show this nigga because he showed every other nigga that wasn't Tupac just as well. Even to his death, the nigga got into a crazy shootout with some niggas and showed them and died in the process. This is a nigga consistently showing and proving that he is not to be taken advantage of or disrespected. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I had the craziest conversation with Reg about this, right? And this was offline. And I was telling Reggie Wright, right, was he ran the company that's Death Row. He was security. You know, he was a police early on in his life because his father was like a legendary, probably the most legendary lawman from Compton. He was like a lawman that everybody in Compton respected. Like it didn't matter, you know, real. Like we was talking about it the other day, real 1%er and gangbang culture is the same culture. Really, people don't really disrespect the police like personally. Like you understand the value for law and you run your place through law. It's more or less you don't fuck with big government. I mean, Fed government. Yeah. So right, and Reggie was really convinced that they put out, you know, and I've heard OG Keefy D said, I don't believe it. I don't give a fuck what they say. If you put out a $7,500 or $10,000 bounty on a motherfucking death row chain, cuz, nigga, not only would everybody be fighting from one gang, the mob, right, for their chains, Daz and Corrupt would have been in trouble. $10,000? 10,000 motherfucking dollars? You know what the type of shit motherfuckers did in 1996? And watch, that's a 20% down payment on a house. You know how many Cutlasses and Regals $10,000 buy? Man, niggas would have been looking for Daz and Corrupt. So if you put a bounty out on a chain, bounties don't go to one neighborhood. Niggas is gonna tell other niggas. For sure, Baby Lane would have told Dre or Lane would have told niggas from Nutty Block or niggas from neighborhood, Compton neighborhood, the niggas that they frequent. Why did them niggas wasn't looking for chains? You know, I'm going to verify further, but I just do not believe for 2 motherfucking seconds that it was a $10,000 bounty on about 50 chains and didn't no chains come up missing. This is Southern California, my nigga. This is a Crip country. It is literally 20 to 30 Crips for every one blood. And Crips don't like Crips. So Daz and Corrupt for short. Snoop would have been on the chopping block for $10,000. Right now, I could pay $10,000 and get Snoop shot. For 10. If I give a nigga 10,000, they will shoot the shit out of dog. And it's Snoop. They ain't gonna be like, well, 10,000 ain't enough. Nigga, I'm like 10,000 right now with inflation. 10,000 can't get you nothing but a couple, tanks of gas now. 10,000 can't get you nothing but a couple In-N-Out meals now.
Yeah.
It's
still a chicken-based celebration dinner. No steak.
10,000, nigga. 10,000 in 1996 would have got you 10 Cutlasses and a Regal.
That's about $50K probably during there right now.
Right? 10 Cutlasses and a Regal, nigga. And I'm talking about clean Cutlasses with Euros, nice interior, you know what I mean? 27,000 miles. You'd have had some nice G-body Cutlasses and Regals, cuz. So, feel me? Right now, $10,000, nigga, that will get you just one clean Cutlass. You can't even get a grand. Back then, you could have got 2 Grand Nationals for $10,000 and 96. So you mean to tell me dog would have been walking around with a chain? Man, them niggas would have been on them niggas like boy white on rice. $10,000? $10,000? Niggas is crazy, man. $10,000. I don't give a fuck what all them niggas saying. None of them G niggas. I love all of them with all my heart and soul. And I think they be right 90% of the time. But some of this shit is ridiculous. If I put a $10,000 bounty right now on any nigga chain in the city, and $10,000 cuz is not what $10,000 used to be. There's not a nigga click chain. If it's more than 10 chains, nigga, I will have 3 of them motherfuckers for $10,000.
Right now. There'd be a run on your bank. How many would come back?
10,000? Right now.
Like, I only had a bounty for 1. I didn't have a bounty for 16.
10,000 ain't nothing but 4 months rent and watts. That's what 10,000. That's 4 months rent and watts. 10,000. Feel me? 10,000 in any other city is 2 to 3 months. So people think, I'm starting to get that people think I'm crazy, right? So there's a Tupac Must Die is a weird entity, right? Because the conversation is with fanatics, right? And they're single-mindedly objective, and to some people, nothing Tupac did could warrant his death. That Tupac could have raped their mother, and it didn't warrant their death. Tupac could have, molested somebody, and that didn't warrant his death. To this version of a fanatic, again, like if you talk to a Christian, you know what I mean, and you explain to them Jesus was a man walking the earth, and of course he did something wrong. No, Jesus didn't do nothing. It's impossible, and it's like, well, why couldn't he have? I mean, but again, when you're a fanatic, when you're single-minded, and you're filled with excessive zeal for an entity or a person, there's no way possible. And even with Tupac Must Die, like you shouldn't dislike Tupac if you hear the song. Like you don't have to dislike Tupac. All I'm expressing to you is the morality of gang members.
Yeah.
I don't get what the fuck is the problem.
It's just these orthodox Tupac fundamentalists.
Orthodox Tupac fundamentalists. I had an idea I was going to do with the Outlaws, Mo Preem, different niggas. I wanted to make something called the Bible, the Thug Bible, right? And it's the Two Testament. And it's like, just like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I would have, all of the outlaws, all of the surviving members of Thug Life, Tretch, all write these biblical chapters, these books, like Bible books on their experiences with Tupac. And then I would compile it and make it, I would create a council of Compton, right? A council of Compton, right? That literally that creates this religion that follows the thug laws of Tupac. And you could create a legit religion from it, because Tupac's legend has to be like, bigger than Jesus' legend was in that time. Like between Jesus dying, being hung on the cross, all the way to when they created Christianity, his legend was spreading. But his legend didn't spread as much as Pac's did after he passed away to 2000. Tupac's legend is worldwide. It is infectious and people love it. So all you need to do is give them an organized way to practice said religion and to follow. Like so again today, like Kanye should have never married that bitch, took place in a wedding chapel, but they see a cross. He's like, how dare you, take that symbol of Jesus Christ and you defile it with your visuals of using profanity. And I was like, well, did
Kanye put Kim in the church? No one complained to him.
God chased people. I mean, Jesus chased people out the church with a broom. People chased them out the temple with a broom, swinging on them, trying to whack them. Feel me? So, not to mention, Jesus did not select the cross as his symbol. That's like me. I'm alive. My number is 7. That's my number. So if you wanted a number that represent me, 7, and then I pass away, and you for some reason talking about I got shot 3 times, so my number is 3. Bitch, my number was 7. That's my number. If you follow me and you really fuck with me, how you let a bunch of other motherfuckers tell you what my number was. That represent, oh, he got shot 3 times, so his number is 3. Bitch, no, it's not. And that's how I feel about when they talk to me about Jesus with the cross. Bro, y'all chose that shit for y'all selfish purposes of like, oh, he died for our sins, so the cross. No, bitch, that represents your relationship. What represents Jesus is something that Jesus fucked with, that he picked. And I feel like that with Tupac too. I keep explaining this to people, right? Tupac loved the streets. He embraced them. He embraced everything that came with them. And you watch people talking about they Tupac fans or they Nip fans and they trying to down the streets. These two niggas love the streets. They would never turn their back on the streets. Some people say, oh, it caused their death. That's why they died. No, they die because you gotta die. You is not gonna live on this motherfucker forever. You got to die. How you go out, what's more important than the fact you gotta die is how you live. And them two gentlemen understood that the best. They understood that living a certain way was more important than just dying. And they chose to live the way they wanted to live. So it's weird that, like I said, if I say I'm a Tupac, like I enjoy Tupac's music, or before I realize I'm not a fanatic of anyone, like I would consider myself a fan of Tupac. I enjoyed his music thoroughly. And somebody said, well, how could you be his fan and make a song like Tupac Must Die? And I'm like, that's exactly why you can make the song.
Yeah, I mean, people are huge. It's usually people who have a passion for something that research something, that try to answer an unsolved question, or a question that's maybe been solved but not necessarily relayed to people.
You have to be, indoctrinated in that person.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just been a weird experience, man. The whole thing was a weird experience. You know what I'm saying? But it was great. It was so by far it was the first time I ever was called a clout chaser. I don't even know what that is. Like I always had clout since high school. I don't even never not remember being one of those niggas.
That would be like tantamount to saying that at the height of his career that the game was a clout chaser because he was always referring to like legendary West Coast rappers all the time and shit in his
I
music.
think they only call it
No.
clout chasing, right? If it's if they feel the conversation is negative. If you
Mm.
use it in a positive manner, like where Chuck, which he uses those names, they say he's a what's the word called? He always uh it's a word for it too. Name something. Chuck, they be like game be I forgot anyway. It didn't matter to me because
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to none of that silly ass shit. I feel like people talk about things that people want to tune into.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? People talk about things that people want to tune into. And the thing about, Tupac Must Die was the title is because that was the mind state of the person he jumped. Not only was it a film, but I shot it first person. So if you watch the video, you watched it from the eyes of somebody that got jumped by Tupac and his friends. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
why he must die based off of the fact that that was that, right? It made perfect sense. Um, I don't know, man. Like I don't think this should even be hard for a fanatic to understand because this doesn't go against anything that Tupac said or stood for. Like it's people who argue and they be like, "Oh, Tupac wasn't a gang member," and I'm like, Tupac said he was from the mob. Like he started claiming mob, started saying MOB and money over bitches and Paru and talking about Long Beach Boulevard and Rosecrans and I think he was already vested in the community at that point.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, pretty reasonable. Do you think that like a lot, like I could understand somebody from, I don't know, like Irvine or suburban Phoenix or wherever the hell, being a fan with no perspective? Do you feel that a lot of the people who, you know, are hypercritical of the project to you would fit that description, or that they're like really street people who were just for some reason clouded by this one exceptional character?
For the most part, nobody in the streets feels like that. What I realized, most people who do feel that way have never seen a video. Like,
Okay.
I would dare someone to read the lyrics and see the visuals and not say like, "Oh, this is genius," and it's not a Pac diss. But again, it's a reason why it's only 10 million views across the net. You know what I mean? Yet there's 100 million to 300 million opinions.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's a cold thing. You feel me? It's almost unbelievable, dog. And
I
it's
bet a lot of people, for sake of the conversation surrounding it, couldn't probably either didn't want to, couldn't bring themselves to watch it. Like
yeah,
like voter suppression of like viewer suppression.
yeah, yeah. Because I think somewhere in their mind they thought if they watched it that that they if they watched it that they may have a different opinion of somebody they're single-mindedly and excessively filled with enthusiasm about.
Yeah.
Like,
Or
I
that.
don't get it. And I'm gonna tell you how I know it's true and possible, right? Um During those 8 years of studying the business and going crazy and like, I realized like somebody like Michael Jackson, right? West Side, real quick, I got you on the podcast. I'm talking to Pete. Um, what is it when somebody uses names all the time to actually verify their point or to make you interested? Like, if I work with this nigga. What do we call that name? What do we call it?
Oh, name dropping.
No, name something. What was the slang word for what we call that?
Name dropping.
Name dropping. My nigga be name dropping. So if you
Yeah.
say something positive or what people revere as positive about other people, they say it's name dropping. If you say something that people feel is negative, they will call it clout chasing.
Cloud chasing and hate.
So
Yeah.
either way, whether you fuck with niggas that's celebrity or popular, you feel me? I'll meet you back, nigga. Whether you fuck with people that's celebrity or popular, like, people are going to get mad about it. Like,
Can I put you on the spot real quick?
yeah, for sure.
In your opinion, based off of all the people you know and all the people you've talked to and known for years that were around Pac and all
I
and
never
all
was
of it.
around Pac. I was a kid.
No, you weren't, but you know a lot of people spent
Sure.
a lot
So
of
I
time
know a
talking
ton
about
of
people that were
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and were around Death Row and the scene and all of it.
Sure, yeah,
and Compton and all of that.
Yeah, hands down.
Was there any element of Tupac's, we'll call it, relationship with Mob Pyru that had anything to do with beneficial branding or positive feedback of any kind of sort other than just pure organic social proximity?
No, there's no economic benefit. Gangs are like super duper welcoming. There's always a member, right, that's trying to figure out, man, maybe I can change my life. Maybe this could put me in a legal light to earn economically. So yeah, there's always those guys. But for the most part, gangs are just proud that you want to be a part of them.
I'm not asking from the perspective of the gang. I'm asking from the perspective
Of Pac.
of the rapper. Like, does the rapper's affiliation with the name, brand, title of at the time when West Coast gangster raps at like full throttle?
I genuinely think when Pac came home, Pac had read some really great books. Art of Wars 1. I think Pac came home with a marketing strategy. He put together a marketing strategy sitting in jail that was going to be foolproof. Did I think he initially was in jail like, yeah, when I come home because I'm signed to Death Row, I'm gonna bang the mob, I'm with Suge. No, but I think what happened was when he came home, he saw how dope niggas was. Like, he saw how dope Trayvon Lane was. He saw how dope Buntry Owl was. He saw how dope Heron was. He saw the love of niggas who grew up poor together and the camaraderie of it. And it's very infectious. You know what I mean? Like when you see how niggas get down with each other, I mean, I got partners from the mob. My boy Mikey Rue locked up. Zabo, rest in peace. Turn, Rob. I can go through 20, 30 names of mob niggas. Drew, rest in peace. Different niggas that I genuinely love. Feel me? And you know, you come up in the same, yeah, it's not culture, it's a little different, but it's the same community, and you realize you got so much in common with niggas. And I think when Pac came home, don't get me wrong, I think definitely when he signed with Death Row, he realized like, yeah, this nigga kind of, I'm not feeling how these niggas is on top, and they did kind of, you know, get my style of talking to the girls and shit. So feel me, and I got shot in their town, and I could kind of take it where I want to take it. Like he had a plan for sure. I don't think his plan involved let me become a mob Pyru. I think that happened organically. I thought they saw him and they liked him. This nigga, you know, it's a young, wild nigga. This nigga 24. You know what I mean? He's a superstar to some degree. He's a star. You know what I mean? He's in films. You know what I mean? And he's like a nigga. You know, Pac is a nigga. You know what I mean? Like, feel me? He was vocal, open. He had survived jail. He had been shot. There's a lot of things to respect about his experience when you come from our backgrounds. You like, shit, man, this nigga just got out of prison. Then they got a parole number, you feel me? They fucking with him, he came from the same slum. So you love it. And he vocal. This nigga is bright and loud on niggas. Yeah, nigga popping his shit. So I could see how they could be indoctrinated into, fucking with him and supporting him. He's a fucking awesome. He's an awesome light, you know what I'm saying, going on.
Yeah.
And from his eyes, you talking about niggas that's down as a motherfucker. You know what I mean? Them motherfucking niggas was down. They was with it and they was going, they wasn't like no other niggas Pac was around. No disrespect to nobody from the Bay, from up top. No disrespect to none of the homies from Thug Life and none of that. But them niggas was some shit. And them niggas they would press a hard line. And I think he saw that in that camaraderie, that love they have for each other, and that style, and that culture, and that fashion, and that get down. And he fell in love with it too. It's hard not to. You see rappers today falling in love with it right now, singers. You know what I mean? It's a very infectious thing. So I genuinely think, he wasn't really, that wasn't part of the plan. And I'll be honest, I'll say something honest on this podcast, and it's something I don't share often, but I definitely think, I think it was obvious. The beef with Bad Boy wasn't real from his perspective. It was just competitive. He wanted to compete for that spot. Snoop had one spot. It wasn't no taking Snoop spot. Snoop was the nigga. But Biggie's spot was a big deal, and this was his little homie. You know what I'm saying? This was his little nigga that he put on and put him on stages and fucked with him and, showed him love. And now this nigga come home and you in jail. This nigga is the man. Big is the fucking man. And, you see some little things being said. You see some things that you feel was played around so you could create enough of an attitude to compete. Now, how do you formulate the public to support you competing? You can't just say, well, them niggas ain't better than me, right? It's like, no. So a lot of times he allowed the public to be misled with belief that, people really feel like Biggie had something to do with him getting shot, or Biggie set him up, or Biggie called niggas. And Pac always said that's not true. But he did give you little small tidbits to where you think that could be possibly true. So that rallies you around. Like Pac understood war differently, and he came home with a plan to execute it. So no, I don't think genuinely, bro, that was I don't think that's what he was on. I don't think he came home like, yeah, I'm finna be from mob. I think he saw, like I said, them niggas, shook them and really was like, man, I fuck with this. I fuck with these niggas. And they down for me. You know what I'm saying? And they saw him and saw a little light, a flashlight, like a light from God, like a beam. You feel me? And they was like, they was attracted to each other, the whole movement, and they got down, and it ended up producing, possibly, one of the greatest hip hop albums or greatest albums ever to come out in music. So it's tough. It's tough, man, because while I do get how a fanatic can feel about something, right? But if you took the time to look at it and watch it, you feel me? It's not against Pac. The idea is informative. It's to help you understand. But again, the point I was making when I lost my train of thought earlier, and then we'll jump off because I don't want to drag this shit out. But when I was along my studies from 2011 to 2019, I'm still studying now, but this is when I was at the grassroots and getting my bachelor's in record making, getting my master's in hip hop, getting my doctorates in marketing. Right, as I'm on that journey for those from 2011 to 19, I learned about Michael Jackson. I learned Michael Jackson dance move came from a gentleman named Bob Fosse and a couple mixed components, but a lot of the way he's moved that we've made him popular for or made him original came from Bob Fosse. I figured out that, Billie Jean, Billie Jean is just Hall & Oates. I can't go for that. I realized that Thriller is Rick James. I realized he kind of, took a lot of the feel from Ray Parker, Bad as Ghostbusters. I realized Don't Stop Till You Get Enough is a poorly executed version of Marvin Gaye's Got to Give It Up. He wrote the song in his kitchen with the radio playing. The number one song in the country was Marvin Gaye Got to Give It Up. So if you listen to Michael Jackson, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, it's the reason he sings in falsetto poorly. It sounds horrible. Like it's not the worst, but it's not Ron Banks from the Dramatics. That's not his style, but he was so possessed by what Marvin Gaye and Rick James and Prince, and all that stuff. And Quincy Jones was such a machine that you could tell him and he could make it be that without being that. Somebody asked me, who did I think Quincy Jones was, right? And they said that I think it was Dr. Dre. And I was like, I told DJ Quick this. I said, if Quick is Prince and Rick James mixed together, his influence on Dr. Dre makes him Quincy Jones. But I don't think Dr. Dre is Quincy Jones. You know who's Quincy Jones? Pharrell. That nigga is some shit. He will make some shit across all landscapes, and he'll make some shit that feel like some shit that ain't that shit. And that's the same thing. True. So while I'm thinking, right, the fact that, the greatest, the legends in the history of the game, what I try to do with most niggas around me and what I try to do musically, even with Tupac Must Die, I try to explain to you the stars are not that, they're not that far out there. Like these are not just super gifted people or super talented people. Most of these people that's successful at that level, like a Pac, was well studied. These niggas study history. These are animals and monsters. Dr. Dre knows more records than anybody in the world. This nigga know all the records. He don't know how to play the piano as much as he know all these records. Scott Storch don't know all these records as much as he know how to play the piano. So again, so I'm telling this to my boy and I'm showing him, a movie of Bob Fosse in it called The Little Prince. And it's a scene called The Snake, where he's teaching this little boy what a snake is and he turns into a human snake. And he's explaining to this boy, and that's where those moves Michael Jackson used from, to the point where it's a moonwalk and everything. You know what I mean? And I showed him how I start breaking down all of Michael Jackson's biggest records in the music. And I'm like, yeah, got it from here. And instead of the person I was teaching, instead of him feeling like, oh, I can, because he's an artist. He's like, oh, instead of them saying, I can be great, like greatness is not that far away. If I just put in my work and I study, you know what I'm saying? I can be that. It's like, oh, he's not that. That's the nigga. That was the nigga response. Oh, I thought he was that. That nigga's not that. No, he's that nigga. I'm saying you could be that. That's not a road that hasn't been traveled. That's a well-documented road consistently. And I'm realizing how people are such fanatics that if you express to them how somebody built themselves into something, that steals their joy. Like magic tricks are still magic tricks, even if you know what's behind the curtain. But not to everybody else. They can't enjoy the magic trick if they know what's behind the curtains. That's the problem. And to me, that's what Tupac Must Die was. It was showing people what's behind the curtains.
Yeah, that's a perfect illustration of like such a huge human behavior and societal issue. It's like people want, like if somebody is regular and they want to know why they aren't great, it's because to be great, you have to be endowed from God with something. Otherwise, if anybody could do it, I didn't do it, and I have to reconcile that,